Welcome to Health for People in a Hurry. Today, we're diving into The Devil's Playbook by Lauren Etter, a jaw-dropping, eye-opening tale of power, addiction, and how Silicon Valley's ambition collided with Big Tobacco's relentless pursuit of profit. This story isn't just about business. It's about innovation turned weapon, public health compromised, and a generation caught in the crossfire. Let's set the stage. Cigarettes, one of humanity's deadliest creations. Every year, over 8 million lives are lost to smoking, 7 million directly and 1 million to secondhand smoke. That's like erasing an entire city annually. And it's not just lung cancer, strokes, heart attacks, bronchitis, emphysema. Cigarettes have a menu of misery, and they'll serve it all. For a while, the fight against smoking was winning. In the U.S., smoking rates were cut in half between 1965 and 1997. Huge progress, right? But here's the twist. The global tobacco industry wasn't going to just fade away. With $1.4 trillion at stake, more than the GDP of most countries, the big players weren't quitting. They were adapting. Enter Philip Morris, the global giant of big tobacco. By the turn of the century, they were in trouble. Lawsuits, regulations, public awareness were eating into their empire. But they didn't back down. They got creative. They started experimenting with nicotine alternatives, gum, patches, sprays, anything to keep the cash flowing. And then came the disruptors. Imagine two Stanford students with a big idea, Juul Labs. What began as a mission to help smokers quit turned into something much darker. Juul didn't just grow, it exploded. And it didn't do it alone. Big Tobacco saw the potential and jumped on board, fueling a partnership that turned e-cigarettes into a global phenomenon with dangerous consequences. Lauren Etter's book takes us inside this story of marketing brilliance and moral failure. Juul and Big Tobacco weren't just selling e-cigarettes, they sold a lifestyle, a promise. But beneath the sleek designs and trendy ads, there were risks that were ignored, downplayed, or dismissed altogether. So here's what we're unpacking today. First, we'll look at how Philip Morris scrambled to reinvent itself. Then, we'll dig into Juul's meteoric rise from a scrappy startup to a cultural juggernaut. And finally, we'll confront the harsh truths about e-cigarettes, from their hidden dangers to the long-term consequences of putting profit before public health. This story isn't just about corporations, it's about people. It's about how an industry known for killing found a new way to thrive, how Silicon Valley's disruptive spirit was weaponized, and how lives were put on the line for the bottom line. So, grab your coffee, or maybe a glass of water, because you're going to need it. Let's get into it. Picture this. It's November 1999, and the top executives at Philip Morris are gathered in Puerto Rico. The mood? Desperate. The agenda? Survival. Big Tobacco was in trouble. Regulations were tightening, lawsuits were piling up, and smoking rates were dropping like a stone. Profits? Sliding downhill fast. Here's the backdrop. A few years earlier, the American tobacco industry was hit with a $246 billion settlement. That's billion with a B. This wasn't just a slap on the wrist, it was a reckoning. They agreed to pay up over 25 years to cover the medical costs of smoking-related illnesses and fund anti-smoking campaigns aimed at kids. Translation? Their golden era was over. Philip Morris knew the game was changing, and they had to pivot. Fast. So, what was the plan? Their VP, Stephen C. Parrish, rolled out what he called a dual strategy. On one side, defense. That meant spinning PR narratives, lobbying lawmakers, and dodging lawsuits like they were bullets in the Matrix. But on the other side, offense. They needed to innovate to find the next big thing. A product that could replace cigarettes, avoid regulation, and keep the profits rolling in. But here's the problem. Raising cigarette prices could only stretch so far. Sure, it might boost short-term revenue, but with fewer people smoking, higher prices risked alienating loyal customers and driving them to cheaper brands. They needed something bigger, something transformational. That's when they turned to their scientists and market analysts. The mission? Figure out what smokers really wanted. The answer was staring them in the face: nicotine. Let's break down nicotine for a moment. Originally evolved by tobacco plants to ward off insects, nicotine is a master manipulator of the human brain. In just 10 to 20 seconds after a puff, it lights up the brain's reward system, releasing a rush of dopamine and serotonin. Relaxation, focus, even a little euphoria, it's like instant gratification in chemical form. Fun fact, doctors used to prescribe nicotine for its calming and pain-relieving effects. But here's the twist. Nicotine itself isn't the killer. The real culprits in cigarettes are the nitrosaminas, benzo, A, pyrene, and all those toxic chemicals released when tobacco burns. So, the question became, could they separate the nicotine hit from the deadly side effects? Could they create a cleaner, safer way to deliver that addictive satisfaction? This was the golden goose. A product that could preserve the pleasure while dodging the health risks and societal backlash. It wasn't just about survival, it was about rewriting the rules of the game. What happens next? That's when the story takes a turn. Because out of this desperate quest to reinvent themselves, they'd stumble onto something that would shake not just the industry, but society itself. Let's rewind to a spring day in 2005 at Stanford University. Two graduate students, James Monsies and Adam Bowen, stand before their classmates with an ambitious pitch. Their invention? A sleek, innovative device designed to help smokers quit. They believed this could be revolutionary, a life-saving tool, like the airbag or the condom. It wasn't just a gadget, it was a mission. At the time, smoking was still claiming nearly 500,000 American lives annually. Though public health campaigns and regulations had slashed smoking rates over the decades, 36 million people in the U.S. were still hooked. Big Tobacco was on the ropes, shrinking revenues, growing lawsuits, but Monsies and Bowen weren't affiliated with the industry giants. They were design students with a vision for a better, healthier future. Their prototype, dubbed Plume, was a simple concept, a device that vaporized flavored tobacco extract. They weren't the first to attempt this. Tobacco companies like R.J. Reynolds had tried and failed to launch similar products. One infamous effort, Premier, had tanked due to its terrible smell. But Monsies and Bowen saw a path forward. They pored over thousands of internal tobacco industry documents released during the 1990s lawsuits. These documents, detailing business strategies, experimental data, and market insights, became their unofficial playbook. The initial Plume prototype was clunky. It used a butane heater and was far from intuitive. Their advisor, David Kelly, the renowned creator of the computer mouse, urged them to refine it. "This is far from done," he told them. Inspired, they pressed on, setting up shop in San Francisco. Venture capitalists quickly took notice. Two Silicon Valley veterans invested $500,000, kickstarting their dream. By 2009, they launched the Plume Model 1. It was sleek, came in flavors like coffee and fruit, and looked like something out of a design magazine. But the mechanics were flawed, it overheated, and wasn't user-friendly. Undeterred, they iterated, eventually releasing a new version called PAX. This time, they nailed it. With a safer lithium battery and a redesign by a Swiss industrial designer, PAX became a hit. And the big players started paying attention. Enter Philip Morris. By this point, the tobacco titan was scrambling to stay relevant. Marlboro's sales were sliding, and their attempt at an e-cigarette, Mark X, had flopped. Meanwhile, Monsies and Bowen were thriving. They discovered a breakthrough. Adding benzoic acid to their nicotine pods made for a smoother, more potent vaping experience. The result? Juul, a product that would redefine the industry. Here's the game changer. Each Juul pod delivered as much nicotine as a pack of cigarettes. But it wasn't just the nicotine hit that set Juul apart. Its sleek, USB-like design and enticing flavors made it wildly popular with younger users. Social media amplified its rise. Accounts like Juul Kingdom fueled viral challenges. One guy vaped 14 Juuls at once, racking up 300,000 likes. By 2017, Juul was raking in $200 million a year, selling millions of pods every month. That's when Philip Morris came knocking. They saw the potential of Juul's meteoric rise and wanted in. Juul, facing mounting regulatory scrutiny, needed Big Tobacco's resources and expertise. After months of negotiations, they struck a deal in December 2018. Philip Morris acquired 35% of Juul for $12.8 billion, valuing the company at an eye-popping $38 billion, the largest valuation ever for a U.S. startup. On paper, it was a match made in corporate heaven. Philip Morris brought regulatory muscle. Juul had the product and momentum. But what followed was a story of ambition colliding with addiction, of innovation overshadowed by unintended consequences. And trust me, this tale is far from over. Let's talk about the darker side of the e-cigarette revolution, the health risks that have been quietly building and are now impossible to ignore. Back in 2009, Dr. Jonathan Winikoff from the American Academy of Pediatrics sounded the alarm. He warned that vaporized e-cigarettes, marketed as harmless alternatives for adults trying to quit smoking, could become a major problem for teenagers. Fast forward a few years, and his prediction comes true. Between 2011 and 2015, teen e-cigarette use skyrocketed by 900%. By 2018, more than 3 million high school students were vaping, a staggering 80% increase in just 1 year. Juul, the brand at the center of this explosion, saw the shift firsthand. Store clerks reported teenagers using fake names or stolen credit cards, sometimes even their parents, to buy these devices. These weren't casual users. These were impulsive teens, deeply vulnerable to addiction. And here's the thing. Teenagers are wired differently. Their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that helps with decision-making and impulse control, doesn't fully develop until around 25. That makes them far more susceptible to trying risky behaviors like vaping. Add nicotine to the mix, and you've got a recipe for lifelong addiction. This isn't just about a passing habit. Nicotine rewires the brain, carving pathways that make quitting incredibly hard. But it's not just addiction we're talking about. Nicotine is toxic in high doses. It can cause nausea, seizures, and even death. A single Juul pod contains as much nicotine as an entire pack of cigarettes. And with flavors masking the harshness, teens often don't realize how much they're consuming until it's too late. The effects on the brain? Profound and lasting. Prolonged nicotine use during adolescence can disrupt critical neural circuits, increasing the risk of anxiety, depression, attention issues, and learning disabilities. And let's not forget what's in the pods themselves, chemicals like diacetyl, which can cause irreversible lung damage, and metals like nickel, chromium, and lead that users unknowingly inhale. Then came the wake-up call, September 2019. A Wisconsin teenager named Klein, after succumbing to peer pressure, began vaping Juul. Within weeks, he was using 3 to 4 pods every 2 days. Not long after, he landed in the ICU with acute bronchitis and pneumonia. His lungs were failing. Klein wasn't an isolated case. Across the U.S., nearly 2,000 similar cases appeared, leading to a new diagnosis, EVALI, or e-cigarette or vaping product use-associated lung injury. Now, let's address the myth that e-cigarettes help people quit smoking. Research shows fewer than 1% of smokers actually quit using them. Instead, many end up as dual users, relying on both cigarettes and vapes, compounding their health risks. Despite these dangers, the e-cigarette industry thrived in a regulatory gray area for years. Medical complexities, lobbying power, and slow governmental action allowed companies like Juul to operate with minimal oversight. By 2016, the FDA finally classified e-cigarettes as tobacco products, promising tighter regulations. But enforcement lagged, and Juul knew how to play the game. They tripled their lobbying budget, hired influential political advisors, and kept pushing their flavored pods to young consumers. By late 2019, however, the tide began to turn. Public outrage forced the FDA to crack down, banning kid-friendly flavors and moving e-cigarettes to restricted areas. Juul's valuation plummeted, tumbling from $38 billion to just over $10 billion. But here's the unsettling part. The nicotine industry is resilient. As Juul faltered, a new contender emerged, Puff Bar. With disposable e-cigarettes and flashy flavors like lychee ice, Puff Bar skirted regulations and quickly captured the market Juul left behind. In regions with looser laws, similar copycat products continue to flood the market, targeting the same demographic. Lauren Eder, the author of The Devil's Playbook, lays out a sobering truth. This isn't just a public health crisis. It's a generational epidemic fueled by Silicon Valley's innovation and Big Tobacco's relentless ambition. Together, they've created an addiction cycle that could haunt society for decades. And here we are, wrapping up The Devil's Playbook. What a journey! Lauren Eder didn't just tell a story, she delivered a searing exposé that lays bare the uncomfortable truths of modern capitalism. Let's step back for a second. This isn't just about Juul. It started as a Silicon Valley dream, two Stanford grads on a mission to help smokers quit. It was a noble idea. But once Big Tobacco and Silicon Valley's relentless hunger for growth got involved, that mission took a back seat. What started as a health revolution spiraled into a profit-driven machine. And the casualties? A whole generation of teenagers caught in the crossfire of addiction. Juul's story mirrors everything we glorify about Silicon Valley, the rocket ship startup. Build fast, launch faster, break things. But here's the problem. Rockets don't always reach the stars. Sometimes they crash. And Juul? It soared, dazzling everyone with promises of innovation and salvation, only to explode midair, leaving destruction in its wake. What sticks with me most is Eder's deeper critique of the Silicon Valley playbook itself. It's not just about one company's failures, it's about the system that rewards speed and profit over responsibility. Sure, Silicon Valley has given us groundbreaking tech and transformed industries, but at what cost? When profit margins are the priority, public health, ethics, and trust are the sacrifices. Juul's rise and fall isn't just their cautionary tale, it's ours too. Eder leaves us with a powerful question. What if Juul's founders had stayed true to their mission? What if they worked with regulators, partnered with public health experts, and stayed focused on helping smokers quit? Maybe they wouldn't have scaled as fast. Maybe investors wouldn't have been as thrilled. But maybe, just maybe, they could have avoided becoming the problem they set out to solve. And that's the tragedy of it all. The hero becomes the villain. The disruptor becomes the harm it once sought to fix. Juul's story isn't just a warning about e-cigarettes, it's a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked ambition. So, here's something to think about. What are we really celebrating when we chase the next big thing? And who bears the cost when ambition runs wild? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. If this story made you pause, reflect, or question, give this video a like and subscribe for more explorations into the stories that shape our health, lives, and future. Let's keep asking the hard questions together.